Hello and welcome to the Warhammer Podcast, episode 189. I'm your host, Brad. This is my co-host, Eric.
How's it going?
This is our Halloween special, and to celebrate, we are going to be going through the Necron range as our spooky skeleton boys. We're doing a full range review of Necrons, exploring the faction and seeing why you should collect them.
Honestly, should be pretty fun. There's a decent amount and some really cool new models too.
All right, but without any further ado, let's get into this thing.
Sounds good.
All right, as we tend to do with this series, we are going to go through all of our named characters, then our regular ones. Then we're going to talk about the different parts of Necrons because it's really like a tri-prong army where there's like different subsections that have different visual appeal and play style and all of that. And then we'll end up with all the big boomy vehicles and their massive death lasers.
Hell yeah. So which model do we actually want to start with for the named characters of our metal skeletons? Do we just go with the big one?
We should go with the Silent King, our supreme commander, the head of our entire faction. As long as you're not Imotekh, he disagrees a little bit, but Imotekh loses this debate because he's on a smaller base.
Ooh.
So the Silent King, our tragic hero, his whole Triarch is here. He also has the flayed corpse of a Catan powering his mobility scooter. I'm sorry, his amazing throne.
True. Yeah. Amazing throne. Definitely not a mobility scooter. So definitely know him as the Silent King, but the Warhammer unit is Zarek and the Triarch Memnirs.
Yes, the Memnirs are the two giant subwoofers on the side.
Oh my god. Yeah, they do kind of look like that.
He's known as the Party Barge, and he has his two giant speaker systems.
I've heard it before.
Yeah, he tends to give out a bunch of buffs. AOS, the name would be a buff wagon, but he is a giant aura of making everybody better, basically, while still being able to chuck out death lasers and beat people to death.
Honestly, really cool looking model. The rules itself does a pretty good job of showing like a leader buffing and doing all that kind of stuff. But yeah, dude, that model, that's a centerpiece model. There's like an entire story being shown in this like diorama type model instead of like, hey, it's just a Necron Overlord with a bit of extra cape.
And now that we're almost 6 years from this model's release, he's got a part in a book. Now it's part of the Dawn of Fire series, so I'm sure he'll be an important, well-written character and not a mustache twirling villain for Space Marines to beat up because the Dawn of Fire series.
Right.
But when I read it, I'm sure I'm going to be happy. But let's move on to the actual mustache twirling villain that is Illuminor Szeras.
So Szeras was the one that like actually did a bunch of the biotransference furnace thing, right?
Yes, and also he's just a really bad dude after biotransference.
Oh, nice. Okay.
He does most of the horrible things that Necrons get accused of. They're almost all Szeras.
I mean, the base does show a bit of evil potential.
Yes, he is your evil scientist man who decided that he wanted to become a crab monster.
Crabification.
It's a crabification in the truest form of evolution.
He just decided to choose to do it before it was done naturally.
In my own collection of Necrons, I will tell you that Szeras is one of the worst models, possibly still the worst model that I've ever assembled with the help of my wife because I could not do it alone, but is one of the funnest models I've ever painted. This model is a joy through and through, and Szeras is a really fun evil character.
I could see it being kind of difficult to put together with some of the connect to this to that.
Yeah, his legs connecting to that body there is a nightmare. The worst thing I've had to deal with.
But it does look really cool.
It does. Once you finish, it looks great. There is a lot of little annoyances putting him together. But yeah, total blast to paint. He is a very cool character if you want to get into the more science-y tech parts. When we get into all the different types of cryptechs, he's technically a cryptech, but he is your evil scientist man character.
And we'll get a bit more into like the cryptech part of the faction once we start talking more, but just remember, if you're interested in cryptech, take a look at Illuminor Szeras. But let's move on to Imotekh.
Yes, the first of the Overlords we're going to talk about, Imotekh of the Sautekh dynasty. He is the Stormlord. He can summon giant lightning bolts with his gauntlet.
Definitely not magic.
Yeah, he's the upstart usurper. He's basically the guy who wants to replace the Silent King and thinks the Silent King is doing a shit job. If you ever need an excuse for why your Necrons are fighting other Necrons, that's the easiest one. also the fact that every Necron dynasty hates every other Necron dynasty quietly, sometimes loudly.
Right, so he actually got a new model pretty recently.
Yes, he did. He, along with Orikan, both got new models this edition. It is very nice. I just got one. I still have not painted mine, but it looks gorgeous in gray plastic.
The potential.
It looks great. Soon as I paint it in 2028, it'll be awesome. Just gotta paint another 5,000 points of Space Marines.
Yeah.
He is a much more reserved model than the Silent King, and as much as he thinks he is so important, he is just the leader of a dynasty. If you're interested in Sautek, this is your basic silver Necrons, by the way. If you've seen like the more generic scheme throughout all the editions where it's just silver robots, that's Sautek, and he is the leader of that part of the Necrons.
Dude, I love the Silver Tide.
Moving into another Sautek character, we have Orikan the Diviner.
Again, also got a new model.
Orikan is a named Chronomancer and has a pretty gorgeous new model. Again, through the power of Chronomancy, we could see mine painted in a few years.
Yeah, that's how video works.
Yeah, he's the other half of Trazyn the Infinite in the Infinite Divine. He is likely one of the characters that you will first enjoy the lore of in Necrons, but Orikan's new model is gorgeous. Unfortunately, as we record this, his other half, Trazyn, or Trazyn more accurately, does not have a new model. His model is old, fine casted on a 25mm base. Do not purchase him. He is bound to get a new model. He's one of the most beloved characters in all of 40K. When he gets a new model, I will excitedly pick it up and will probably immediately paint it because I love him. I can't pronounce his name the way they do in the books without doing a funny accent to remember to put the stress on the right part of the word, but I do love him.
Yeah, it was kind of criminal that GW did not have Trazyn get a new model when Orikan got one.
At the same time, I would really like him to get a big new model. He spends a lot of time on his command barge in the one short story. We've got new art of him sitting in his throne on Solomon's. I would like to see an impressive new Trazyn model. Something really deserving of such a beloved character.
Yeah, something that's a little bit more art piece diorama than just, this is a really fancy named character. Show some more story to it. Those kinds of models are always fun. But yeah, the current model for Trazyn is not good. It shows potential, but...
Moving into the C'tans.
So the C'tan shards are like the energy gods that tried to screw over the Necron tier and then were bested and enslaved as batteries, right?
Yes, the enslaved star gods. The C'tan, yes, are the original gods who took in the Necron tier, betrayed them, turned them into robots, and then the Silent King led the uprising against them to make them into the enslaved star gods they are now, chopping them up into little bits and turning them into batteries.
Really cool looking batteries.
Yes, that power big doomsday weapons. But there are 3 of them that are named. The Deceiver is like the most evil C'tan lore-wise. He is considered the one who betrayed the Necron tier specifically to devour their souls and turn them into the Necrons.
You don't say with a name like The Deceiver.
Yes, why does everyone trust this guy called the Deceiver?
It's just such a trustworthy smile.
Yeah, so the Deceiver is also known as Mr. Banana Man because of his amazing banana bunch haircut. He doesn't look very good, but also he's fine cast, so definitely don't buy him.
Definitely wait for a redo that should happen.
Yeah, because we have the Nightbringer, who is currently getting a refresh right now. I'm hoping it is out shortly after this video airs. I will be picking it up immediately and then failing to paint it for 4 years. But given the glow up the Nightbringer is getting right now and how beautiful the Void Dragon is when we get to him in a minute, I would wait on the Deceiver. But the Nightbringer does not need much argument to sell you on. He is a giant Ghost Grim Reaper with digitization effects and adorable scarabs all over.
I am such a sucker for the digitization, pixelized aesthetic. It's so cool. And it fits Necron stuff really well. A lot of paint schemes will work.
Yeah, it really helps sell the like Masters of the Materium, like the ultimate best tech in 40K, the indistinguishable from magic type of technology. But yeah, the Nightbringer's new model is glorious. I was not like super into it on its reveal day when they like had to rush out the video, but the longer I look at shots of the new model, I am so excited to get this thing.
I do think there is a shocking amount of detail in just like the Grim Reaper kind of thing.
But yeah, the Nightbringer is an easy sell. The C'tan in general are a really fun thing something to just add to your collection no matter what. They don't really need you to be into a specific part of the army. Catan Monster Mash has also always been a very fun way to play Necrons, even when it's a meme for most of its existence, and was very broken for a short while.
There was a short period of time where it was not fun to play against at all.
But it was very fun to pilot.
But it's generally a fine option to have. And part of that is because, like, the Catan usually have rules that try to mess with, like, you know, core rules to the 40K in some way, because, like, oh, it's a star god, let's make them weird and cool, which is always fun.
Yes. Whereas the Silent King is like the big buff aura guy, all of the Catans tend to be the, how is this big monster going to break the rules of the game to like show off its godliness?
And that can vary from edition to edition and all that. But that theming style seems to try to carry through, which is fun.
But we can move on to my absolute favorite of the named characters for Necrons, the Catan Shard of the Void Dragon. What I consider to be one of the most beautiful models in all of 40K.
This can be a centerpiece model.
Yes. And again, the nice part with the Catan is any part of the army you're into, you can add the Catan to it. The Void Dragon is so good. The angel wings with electricity flowing through them, the giant lattice work of electricity that is so genius. Like, this model is super stable because what looks like random energy coming off it is actually like holding it all together perfectly. He's got his cool Canoptek scorpion tail that's actually like a thing tethered to his back, like controlling him or zapping him. I'm not really sure what it's not good for him, I'm sure, but man, it looks cool.
It does look very cool. It's tough to show from like a single picture, but like it's actually got a lot of depth.
Yeah, the model is actually really nice. He is the like, has been for the edition and a half that he has existed, has been like the anti-vehicle one-shot your technology guy. That has been his specialization.
Yeah, I don't know too much about his actual lore.
So for some fun lore for the Void Dragon, the machine god the Admech worship is actually a shard of the Void Dragon that is trapped within Mars.
Oh, okay. I feel like I had heard that before, but wasn't sure if it was just like, you know, internet lore or if it was real.
That is like actually shown through, like, even Call's latest book has a little bit of it.
All right, that's really cool.
Basically, ye olden times, the Emperor fought a shard of the Void Dragon and jammed it into Mars and locked it there, and then the Admech show up a few thousand years later and start worshiping it as God.
That's awesome.
And reminder, they think the Emperor is the Omnissiah, which is their version of Jesus to their god. So they think the Emperor is the voice of the Catan Shard of the Void Dragon that he slew in air quotes and locked in Mars.
Yeah, makes sense. Right. Okay. So there's one more Catan. We're done with the like named epic heroes, but we do have another Catan that's not named, more generic version.
Yes, this is just a transcendent Catan, which I guess is the first generic character we're talking about because it makes sense to talk about it right now. This just represents any random Catan, which is not a shard of one of the three named Catans that we have already. This is a great one for if you want like to build up a custom dynasty that has a specific Catan that you've made up that they uses their power source and that they have a history with and hate or whatever. You can use a Transcendent Catan for that. As for the model itself, just as a warning, the official GW version of this comes from a kit we'll talk about way later, which is the Tesseract Vault and is the center part of the Tesseract Vault, meaning you have to build the obelisk, which has been a meme for its entire existence as quite possibly in all of Warhammer 40K, the worst model stat-wise for the longest period of time. So anytime you officially use an official Transcendent Catan, you have to build the worst model in all of 40K, which by the way is like $200 US.
Yeah.
What I'm telling you is if you want a Transcendent Catan, don't buy GWs.
Or look in secondary market. At the very least, take a look there. You might be able to find something.
Good luck. But it's a great kit bash project to make your own and theme it the way you want for your dynasty.
Yeah.
You can even theme it out of GW official kits, so that way they still get their money and don't get mad and squat your grotesques after you spent all that money making them.
But yeah, so like the actual model itself here, it's like not amazing and it's got problems to actually get, but the Transcendent Catan itself is nice to have as a like generic option to play with kind of thing. But let's get into like the primary characters, starting with like I guess the captain equivalent, may as well call it that.
Yeah, so this is your Overlord. This is your generic ruler of your Necrons. They have different tiers of them, so they can be as important or unimportant as you need. Basically, these are, yeah, from a generic 40k translation, a Space Marine captain's equivalent. Overlords have several kits available. We have generic ones that can be built different ways, like the one with the scythe. There is a different kit where you get your absolutely amazing lore-wise, but is only met in-game Tachyon arrow. We even have an Overlord with the Translocation Shroud, which is a new edition. This again has the cool half their effect of the digitization to teleport. But your Overlord, as you get into Necrons, is likely going to be the character that you start off with as your faction's personal leader if you're making a your guys.
And also just like probably gonna be something that you include in most lists. It's a pretty decent leader and they do look pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm a very big fan of all the iterations of the Overlord. I love the scythe. I love the Tachyon arrow just because of lore stuff. Twice Dead King has amazing Tachyon arrow lore.
I love the Tachyon arrow for its rules. Just a one shot. Hopefully it kills them.
Yeah, it's this gun can only be loaded once.
Yeah, fun weapon options there, and honestly it's really cool to see the different takes on the Overlord, because like the different models are reasonably different but still following the same idea.
Well, there's even one more Overlord, which is the Catacomb Command Barge, which is an Overlord on a barge.
Hell yeah.
This is again yet another model that you can just use as a base and put your own personalized Overlord on it. The barge itself, when you buy one, you can leave your Overlord that comes in the kit off of it and just put your own custom one there that you've like kit bashed together. It's a very cool one to do as your like personal pet project. But again, this is an Overlord, but this one is on a pretty cool combat throne.
Is that what it's actually supposed to be? Like a throne?
So like Trazyn uses his barge to get around his giant ostentatious museum and stuff, and like has his guys fly him around while he stands on it and muses at things. Like it's a Pope mobile for your boss.
Yeah, I always kind of figured it was like a palanquin.
Yeah, a palanquin.
Something kind of like that, but super advanced technology. Either way, it looks pretty cool. I dig the croissant.
I'm glad you like croissants if you're in Necrons, because we have a lot of them.
That's true. We'll see that shape come up a few times.
But moving down from Overlords, we have Royal Wardens. These are like your officers, I guess you could say. They're above a normal Necron, but they're not true royalty like an Overlord. I guess military officer, like someone who was important but was not proper nobility.
Like a knight kind of thing.
Yeah, a personal guard to an Overlord maybe, depending on background you give them.
Serving directly the Overlord, but not like fully part of the like line of succession as it would be.
Yeah, but Royal Wardens are basically like lieutenants, sort of. We don't have lords anymore, so...
Kinda, if you squint.
Yeah, if you squint and don't look at the rules.
Right? I mean, maybe the rules will change a little bit to be more reflective of that, but the model looks cool. I love the gun.
They're a really nice regal model. They look like a much more badass version of an Immortal. This is, again, a very vanilla Silvertide standard Necron, just like with the Overlord. Moving on to our next part of the characters, though, we get into one of the other, what I would consider the prongs of the army. These are your Destroyers.
All right, so what are Destroyers?
Basically, the Destroyers are Necrons who succumb to Destroyer madness and basically lose all thought other than wanting to destroy life. It's a coping mechanism.
Wow.
Some people cope differently. Daddy grabs the beer bottle.
Skorpekh Lords just want to see the world burn.
Yes. All the Destroyer characters and normal units are basically your crazy murder hobos at this point. They've gone mad and just want to continually destroy everything as efficiently as they can. They will often have altered bodies to help them destroy and not much else.
So is the Destroyer virus like something from like the like biotransference wake up procedure?
Well, no, it's Destroyer Destroyer madness, not virus. Flayer is the virus, and that's why it gets confusing. Overlords tend to fear the Destroyer madness and like treat destroyers as sort of like a leper colony. So depending on the dynasty, most of them would shun them into a corner and like basically unleash them like lions on people.
That sounds like it might kind of work out for the ones that have the Destroyer madness in a weird way.
Yeah, from a collecting angle, destroyers are definitely the spooky part of Necrons along with Flayed Ones, but they're technically two different things, but they always get pushed together, especially in rules writing, just because there's only Flayed Ones.
But yeah, these are the ones that are more like, they kind of look like they would be torture devices attached.
Yes, but the Skorpekh Lord is like one of my all-time favorite models in Necrons. I just love his aesthetic, and honestly, the 9th edition launch trailer was like part of why I went into Necrons.
Yeah, it's got a pretty cool design, not just being humanoid, 2 legs, 2 arms, a head kind of thing, but also having like a lot of human characteristics.
All right, moving on from the Skorpekh Lord, we have the Lokhust Lord. This is basically a counterpart to the Skorpekh Lord. Unfortunately, our current kit for it is like a fine cast upgrade for an old plastic kit, but ignoring that fact, it's a cool idea for a Lord, and you can actually kit bash one really cool off of the heavy Destroyer kit if you want. I have seen some really awesome ones, but this is basically your other version of like one of your overlords who fell to the Destroyer madness.
One of the few mounted parts of Necrons.
Yes, technically right now they're mounted. They have been infantry and mounted and other things in the past, rules wise.
Like, I get it, it's a confusing model to nail down, but don't like mounted.
Is a centaur mounted?
Right? It's just
Do you
not.
mount your legs?
Sorry for that tangent, but I had to get that off my chest.
But moving on from our Lokhust Lord, who's not very impressive, we have something that's very impressive. The Galactopus himself, the Hexmark Destroyer. Yes, that is a guy with 6 guns and 3 legs.
Yeah, the Galactopus is kind of a silly name, but it fits perfectly for this model in such a, like, when you explain it, it feels like it would be kind of lame, but then you look at it and you're like, nah, that's cool.
It is like one of the coolest models ever. Like, oh my god, I love the Hexmark Destroyer. His like creepy spider face eyes on his normal face. The fact that he just kept adding more arms and none of them are useful. All of them are just a gun.
I actually dig the tubes hooked up as well. It just adds that extra eye line that like draws in like a circle kind of thing around the model.
Yeah, this is our quote unquote assassin character in the Destroyer part of the army.
Sure.
You don't need a reason to want to add him to your collection. The Hexmark Destroyer is a cowboy hat away from the greatest thing ever made.
True.
But this does wrap up the Destroyer characters. Moving into what sort of represents another prong, we have the different cryptechs we have available. These are the Chronomancer, Psychomancer, Plasmancer, and Technomancer, all of which are cryptechs of different schools. They're basically wizards of different types. They are scientists, technically, because Necrons don't believe in magic. They just know exactly how the universe works, and therefore you think they're magic.
Yeah, very similar to Psychic, but just big brain.
Yes, this is what happens when you stay in school for 65 million years.
You somehow figure out how to play with time itself.
Yes. Technically, Orikan is a named Chronomancer. Chronomancers being the time scientists / mages. Look, they called them Mancers. They knew.
Yeah, that's true. I really dig the Chronomancer model.
I am a fan of it. I just like the cubes all over his like shoulders and stuff. I also love the fact that he gave himself a very long beard just by elongating his chin.
Very important. I love the like tentacle feet kind of thing going on. It's just, it's really unique and different in a kind of creepy, weird way that fits. Yeah, the model just, it really works well all together.
Yes, and moving into the Psychomancer, we have the one that is basically the mental / fear part. Basically being spoopy and making people fear him. I actually love the digitized skull. It looks really cool in person, the way it like comes together and like you look at it from a certain angle digital, and it like kind of looks like random digitized like pixels, and then like as you turn it you see the skull.
Yeah.
It's hard to describe until you like turn the model.
It is a really cool effect. Oh man, it's such a fun accent to a model.
Exactly. And the 4 different cryptex here all kind of work the same way as like a mage character who has one specific shtick. Chronomancers tend to help be defensive through time powers and keeping people from getting exploded. Psychomancers tend to scare everybody. The Plasmancer chucks lightning bolts, and the Technomancer is basically an all-in-one medic / mechanic, because Necrons are metal and therefore your mechanic is also your medic.
It's kind of weird like that.
And speaking of Technomancers, Szeras is a named Technomancer. He is basically the named mechanic / medic, but also evil scientist man. You do not want to be under his scalpel.
The classic mad doc.
Yeah.
But is also a mad scientist on like technology stuff. Yeah.
He's your all-in-one Bond villain. But anyway, the Technomancer has a gorgeous model where he's on the little Canoptek guy.
It's like a Canoptek disc to scuttle around and carry him. I don't know.
Something like that.
And he's like attached to it from like a backpack.
Yeah, it's part of his cloak.
Okay. It's a fun model. He's very close to giving you the peace sign, which is why you know that he's a medic.
But yeah, the Technomancer, in my opinion, best summarizes the Canoptek part of the army as far as what the cryptex represent. I think the other ones are pretty agnostic to which part of the army they are best representing, but the Technomancer is 100% the first example of something that I would consider like the Canoptek part of the army when we get there in the more generic stuff. Your pure robots that are not a Necron tier turned into a Necron, like something that is like a tractor.
Right, like actual robot automaton type thing, not just, oh, you were biotransferred.
Yes. And then as our last cryptech, we have the Plasmancer. As I said, they chuck lightning bolts.
Hell yeah. Lightning bolt. The model's okay.
You can say it. It's by far the least impressive of them.
Like, it's not bad. It really isn't bad, but it is definitely the least impressive of these 4.
Yeah, I own all the different types of cryptex, and yeah, it's not close. The Plasmancer is by far the least impressive one. I will say it's very regal. The like double long chains off the front.
Yeah.
Those look really nice when you paint them right.
It just feels like it's the Technomancer is like the most cryptech, but like the Psychomancer and the Chronomancer kind of fit close-ish, and then the Plasmancer doesn't really fit that to me at all. But yeah, it is pretty decent. It's just not quite as cool. Maybe a little bit of bias.
I guess while we're here, quick shout out. There is also the Geomancer, which just came out in Kill Team and does not, as we record this, have 40k rules for it yet.
But holy shit, that model looks cool.
Yes, it's very cool. This new Kill Team exists and doesn't have any rules in 40k yet. I'm sure at some point it will get them, probably 5 minutes before this episode launches, to piss me off.
Yeah.
But the Geomancer is joining the different types of cryptex. If you're watching this in the future, it's a cool option you can get.
Yeah, apparently they're like alchemists or something like that. It looks really cool. So hopefully it has cool rules that are added so that we can actually play it in 40k. But I think that does round out our characters. So we can move into the infantry, I guess.
Yes. So let's start off with the most basic, the Necron Warriors. These are your rank and file. Lore-wise, these are your everyday people, the men, women, and children of the Necron tier who got changed into basically robots.
Yeah.
There's not much left in there. They're basically gone. They take direct orders from higher tier Necrons that are capable of giving them commands, and that's about it. They are your skeleton legion.
There's honestly not too much to say other than like this is a more generic rank and file model. Like it's not super detailed, but it shows off the intent of, you know, what to expect kind of thing. Decently cool guns. But do we want to move to the Immortals next?
Sure. So this is your more elite unit of your generic battle line infantry. They're bulkier, bigger. They have the option for 2 different large guns, either Gauss or Tesla. Tesla is awesome. You're shooting lightning that can like ricochet and chain react off people. I am always a fan of Tesla Immortals because I just love throwing dice and getting more hits than I threw dice.
It is fun. But I think the Immortals Immortals do a great job of showing, like, yeah, it's a lot of hints from the basic Necron warrior, but like buffed up as if you're like veteran Necron kind of thing. Like, you've seen war, you've lived through it, you're kind of a badass now. It's got that kind of feel going on to it.
Yeah, and the Immortal kit is actually a dual build kit that lets you also build the Death Marks, which is our next one here. These are your basic sniper team. They have a sick single giant eye. Lore-wise, they can disappear into a little hyperspace, tiny pocket dimension where they can hide out between shots.
Yeah, that's always fun. I do actually really like the single eye. It works really well. And is also kind of hilarious for a sniper.
Yeah, and as far as our vanilla Necrons go, they're basically our elite shooty unit that's not like a basic battle line unit. Whereas our elite melee unit is the Lich Guard. These are basically the Royal Guard, the ones who would actually be protecting your Overlord. They're also just super sick with their shields and swords. You can technically build them with the Scythe, but anytime you don't build that sweet shield is wrong.
I do think they are kind of cool looking with the Scythe. There's some nice poses for the Scythe and, like, you know, action kind of stuff, but I think I'm with you. The shield is just so cool.
The Lich Guard are basically your super defensive and actually kind of good in melee all-rounder unit. Basically our Terminator equivalent. They tend to just be the super bulky defensive line that you just park somewhere and control the place.
Yeah, slow moving, decent toughness, hard to kill, a bulwark that you can set somewhere.
They have an alt build, which is the Triarch Praetorian, which are basically like the voice of the Triarch, which is the Silent King and the other two guys, the leaders of the Necrons. You can basically think of them as like the inter-dynasty police.
Yeah, so these are like kind of like Inquisitors, right?
In a way, sort of.
They show up and like their word is rule no matter what, like, so fear them.
Yeah, they're basically like not specific to any dynasty. They're like the Necron fully their police. They are basically like the enforcers of the Silent King.
That's cool. So like more elite kind of powerful looking models, I suppose. Less of the big shield.
Yeah, they're your offensive, like high mobility beat sticks. They are the Lich Guard's polar opposite. Like, they're both melee powerhouses, but this one is meant for going fast and blowing someone up, whereas the Lich Guard are to be defensive and protect. And lore-wise, they're opposites, where the Lich Guard loyally serve your Overlord. The Triarch Praetorian loyally serve the Silent King and will make your Overlord and all the other ones obey.
The models are pretty cool. A bit of it's just biased because I really like shields that are like well done.
I will tell you, I 100% think the Lich Guard look cooler than the Praetorians, but you're allowed to like either. I do have to say I like the Praetorians like exoskeleton idea going on with their jetpack, where it's like a second spine on their back.
Yeah. I was also trying to bring up the whatever that spine jetpack thing is, but I had no idea how to bring it up.
It's cool. It's weird because you mostly see them from the front and you don't see a lot of the detail of like it's a jetpack and is like super stylized.
I like the idea though. It's always nice to see that alien flair.
Yes, to remind you that they're not just humans, even though like they're more human than most of the Imperium lore wise and basically are ripped right out of real human history. For half of our history is abusing the impoverished to help kings.
Yeah, there's a lot of story lore that's basically directly ripped out from historical events, but with a bit of stylized effect for 40K, which is not a bad thing. But I do think that kind of rounds out like the basic infantry, so we can talk a bit more about some of the like more focused sections.
Yeah, so that would be like the first prong, in my opinion, is like your Silvertide generic dudes, like your Necron Warrior part of the army. Whereas up next we have the Destroyers, and these are a bunch of kits that combined with the Destroyer characters make up the Destroyer Madness, and we'll throw them in here, the Flayed Ones for the Flayer virus. But we can start off with the Skorpekh Destroyers. They match the Skorpekh Lord. They are also cool as shit. They're like scorpion guys with blade arms. I'm in. I love them. This is why I don't care about the Triarch Praetorians very much, because I would rather have Skorpekh Destroyers.
To fill that role of fairly mobile, melee, killy.
Yeah, while looking cool as shit. Destroyers and Canoptek's are both the parts of the army I love.
Yeah, those weapons are just super intimidating.
They're really fun to paint too. But yeah, they're basically our chunky, pretty shockingly mobile, at least for Necrons, melee beat sticks.
The models themselves are quite cool, but not quite as cool as the Lord, which is, I guess, a good thing. But yeah, from there, we'll just move into the Ophydian Destroyers.
Yes, so these are your more scouty. These ones are glass cannons, but these are the faster version of a Skorpekh.
Honestly, these are just scary.
They are one of the best, like, true horror looking things in Necrons. Like, they go full alien.
Because, like, as much as you're like, oh, the Destroyers are the, like, kind of scary part, it's like, yeah, I guess. But, like, a lot of them are just kind of intimidating. The Ophydian Destroyers are like, yes, I am scared. I think they do nail that aesthetic.
Yeah, these are like your super fast but much more frail and less bulky version of the Skorpekh Destroyers. They're basically for dicing people up. If you want to go the Destroyer route, you can't really go wrong between the Skorpechs and the Ophidians and then like heavy Destroyers when we get there. I love this whole range. I do think the only one of the bunch, the Lokhust Destroyers, are getting really old.
Yeah.
I do like playing with normal Destroyers, which are now called Lokhust Destroyers. I do like playing with them tabletop wise. I just feel like this kit shows its age real harshly against all the beautiful new Necron kits.
As much as like in general that is true, the biggest part is the weapon. That's the old style. Sorry, it's not as cool.
And it looks like a toy compared to the rest of the range at this point because it still uses the old glow sticks.
Yeah, it would be really nice to get an update of this because like the ideas are all there and it could be really cool.
The Heavy Destroyer shows off like the bigger version of this, and you could just make the lighter version of the Heavy Destroyer, and it would be awesome to see these things updated into that.
I honestly don't dislike the Lokhust Destroyers. They're just, like you said, they are kind of showing their age now.
Yeah, and the Lokhust Heavy Destroyer, like I just said, shows off what they could be, and it's why I want so bad for them to get their update, because this thing is super cool. It's got two giant big guns you can choose between, either the one that fires a billion shots, well, not that many this edition, but or the one that is just a delete this man now button.
So I know like the basic or just the Lokhust Destroyers, they're essentially just like death marks or immortals or whatever on a mounted chassis, whatever we want to call that. What's the Heavy Destroyer? Is that just same kind of thing or like?
Yeah, a guy who got more into modding. He built the bigger vape to hit fatter clouds.
All right, I can respect that.
His computer's got all the RGB.
I'm less excited about that, but you do you.
He modded Noctua fans to have RGB.
No, bad.
To make them finally cool and not garbage.
Do not modify. They're there for efficiency and minimal noise.
You can get that off of RGB fans. Noctuas are for old men.
Noctuas are for people who understand quality and not flashy gimmicks.
Sign me up for flashy gimmicks like the Lokhust Heavy Destroyer. And his Gauze Destructor.
Oh, yeah. I guess I never read the other weapon, the Imotekh Exterminator. That's a hell of a weapon name.
But the Lokhust Heavy Destroyer is the one I would have for a go-to addition to get your anti-tank if you want to go the Destroyer route. Obviously, you pick up your Skorpechs as like your core melee thing. I would tell you not to pick up Lokhust yet, but they would be your core shooty thing.
I think you kind of have to have some Lokhust Destroyers. If you really want to like embrace a destroyer army, kind of need some of them just to balance the army out.
Yeah, it just hurts me to recommend it to people because I feel like it's bad advice for me to tell people to buy such an old kit, especially because I'm not entirely happy with mine.
Yeah.
But anyway, we have one last one here that's not technically Destroyers, but they always get lumped in with them by GW, so we might as well join them here. These are the Flayed Ones. They suffer from the Flayer virus, which is basically a curse from a dead Catan, who got his last revenge against the Necrons by giving them a mind-melting tech disease.
Yeah, it's pretty terrible. The Flayed Ones are like the only units kind of showing that the Flayer or whatever off, but
yes, we do have some lore for like Flayer characters, but we don't have any of them game-wise yet. You could theme an Overlord that way, though.
that would be really cool to see some kit patches like that. But yeah, I guess that kind of makes sense on why they get lumped into the Destroyers, just because like let's make them playable instead of being off on their own.
It's a lot like how CSM currently has Traitor Guard in there, just because we had to put them somewhere.
Right, because these models are super creepy, so I do kind of like them.
Yes, for the spooky part of Necrons, you've got Destroyers and Flayed Ones. If you want to do the real undead look, then you go this part of the army and maybe some of the new Necron Warriors that look nice and decayed to round things out.
Hell yeah.
But the third wing of the army is my personal favorite. These are the Canoptek's, the most adorable boys.
The little scarabs.
We should start off with the greatest reason to be in Necrons, every Necron player's favorite model. You are not a true Necron enjoyer if you do not agree with this fact, the Canoptek Scarabs.
Ah, so cute.
They technically just come in the Necron Warrior kit. You always get 3 Scarabs with 10 Warriors. You can also just ask any longtime Necron player. We all have spares. We all have like well over the legal limit of Scarabs. I have more than the legal limit of Scarabs painted for no reason other than I love these little things.
I don't know if GW sells them separate.
No, they're part of the sprue.
Yeah, I was like, I would not say to buy them because, yeah, they're kind of just given out.
Yes, Scarabs are adorable. They're also shockingly useful at times.
Is this the new Rhinos are free, Scarabs are free?
Yeah, they're like the equivalent of like Nurglings when you get into Nurgle stuff, or Tau drones. Okay, they're not Tau drone tier. That everyone has 1,000 spares of. But yeah, Scarabs are adorable and are also something that you don't really need to go out of your way to collect. You will end up with Scarabs.
But they do show off a fun little part of the Canoptek.
Lore-wise, Scarabs are actually terrifying. These things are essentially laser delete buttons. Like, they run around destroying and building new things. Like, they are your deatomizer / replicator devices. They're the everything tools that the Necrons keep everywhere. And you'll often find Scarabs all over other models.
Ah, so these are like the magic way that all RTS buildings are created.
Yes, exactly what they are. You are 100% right. And what happens when you delete one to save resources? Yeah, that's them just eating it again. But anyway, to move on to the rest of the Canoptek's, we can go to the other side of the spectrum with one of the biggest boys, the Doomstalker. What if we put a tank cannon on top of a robot?
I absolutely love this model.
Yes, the sweet War of the Worlds look.
So cool.
Look, I have 3 of these and they were all very fun to paint.
Yeah, the general silhouette of them is awesome, and like the weapon loadouts are just that extra like, yeah, I like it. So very, very big fan of the Doomstalkers.
And there's just something adorable with Canoptek units and the fact that they all have their little like chibi robot bug faces. They're like a cutesy bug face, you know?
I know exactly what you're saying, and it's weird, but yes, it is so true.
There's something about the really big eye and no mouth or anything that makes them very friendly looking.
Friend-shaped.
Yeah, they're friend-shaped, except for the cannon. The cannon is less friend-shaped, unless you're a lonely lady.
Do we have like, I actually know nothing lore-wise about what the fuck these things are.
They are the equivalent of like a caterpillar, a piece of equipment. They are almost all construction equipment. That is what they are.
Well, then why is it called a Doomsday Blaster?
Because the Doomstalker, you tied a big gun from the Doomsday Ark to the top of a caterpillar.
Okay.
Also, because Borrelia won't understand this in translation, a caterpillar is a famous name of like a piece of construction equipment.
It's the thing that evolves into Metapod.
Yes, exactly. I hate this. But moving on from the Doomstalker, we have its little brother, the Reanimator. The Reanimator is smaller than the Doomstalker by a fair bit. For people who have never seen them in person, the Reanimator only goes up to about where the Doomstalker's legs meet.
Yeah, I was going to say it's like half the size.
It's still like a solid 5 or 6 inches tall. It's very tall for as far as 40K models go, but it's nothing on the Doomstalker. But the Reanimator is basically a big, tall Canoptek helper guy who just walks around and repairs people and brings them back from the dead.
You make it sound so, like, cute somehow.
It is cute.
It's just a good boy that goes around helping.
Just ignore the fact that it's also armed with an atomizer beam.
Yeah, right.
It's very cute until it decides to do that one scene from the end of Watchmen and just explode a guy.
But yeah, I mean, the Reanimator seems to have a pretty important job for Necrons. Reanimation is kind of like their shtick.
Yeah, reanimation is like half of what we do. But if you're into like the more Silver Tide part of the army, the Reanimator is a really nice like bridge into the Canoptek part of the army, as it tends to work more with the generic like Necron Warriors and Immortals. And then you can move into like what I consider to be like the core part of the Canoptek army, which is the Wraiths, also known as the bane of any time Necrons are competitive.
Yeah, that's about right.
Eric has seen how many Wraiths I own. Eric has watched them fall off every table in every household we've ever played in.
The most memorable thing is not any of the rules problems or like the fact that it is a really cool looking model. The most memorable thing is the fact that it cannot stand on its own.
No, it stands on its own just fine. It's the second you attempt to have any outside interference with the fact that it was standing on its own, then it ceases to.
Yeah, I still doubt that it can stand on its own. I've seen it fall way too many times, man. I think it's just a matter of time. Sometimes it's able to delay the fall for a little bit, but it always falls.
They are magnetically attracted to nearby hard surfaces.
They bounce reasonably well, though.
They bounce crazy well. It's like they're spring-loaded. You will lose a limb or two off of them, but they will bounce 3 feet.
Yeah, it's kind of fun.
It's not fun as the person who has to glue them back together.
Right? Yeah.
But Canoptek Wraiths are your all-in-one. They are fast. They hit stuff hard, as long as it's not like a super defensive thing. And they're shockingly durable.
Yeah, I mean, these are definitely not like anti-tank kind of stuff, but they dish out a decent amount of damage.
No, but as far as like anti-infantry go, they're like your all-in-one solution. Canoptek wise / in general for Necrons, they're never a bad choice.
And I do hate how durable they are sometimes.
I love them for it.
It makes sense, especially like Necrons with reanimation always has a layer of durability that's like just built in inherently because of that.
Yes, but like Wraiths lore wise are able to phase in and out of reality at will.
Yeah, the whole Wraith thing, right? Gotta play up that Spectre style.
Yes, and they're actually super spooky in lore too. Whenever they show up in not a Necron book, they're usually like a horror scene.
Yeah, I could see that. Given the whole snake tail thing going on, they could probably like pop out of places that you're like, that shouldn't be possible.
And then, you know, travel through 2 guys, phased out, phase back in, and slice the 3rd guy's head off. They tend to be part of the most horrifying scenes of like, oh, we're on a tomb world, let's leave.
Like actual horror movie being hunted by scary thing. All right.
And then we can move on to their big brother. The Canoptek Spyder is basically like a tomb guardian type thing as far as Necrons go lore wise. And look, it's a giant robot spider. And if you ever build one, you will know that the butt of this thing is actually filled with scarabs that you cannot see after you glue it together. It's adorable.
Is it really?
Yes. And that's why they have their whole Canoptek Swarm ability that they've had for like multiple editions now, where they heal scarabs, because they're basically a scarab factory.
That makes sense. I guess I never knew that they actually had like the modeling involved there.
When that butt is open, it is filled with scarabs.
That's awesome. Yeah, I do quite like this model other than the stand.
Yeah, it is on a basic flight stand. You don't have to put it on one. You can just put it on its base. It does overhang in like every direction though.
Yeah, like it's a spider. It can be on the ground and it'll be okay. And then you don't have this weird flight stand. I don't know.
Because they're Necrons, they're supposed to be able to fly. So it's like, it's weird because it's like if they weren't shown flying, people would be annoyed that they can fly because they're like, it doesn't have wings and therefore my brain doesn't understand that this thing can fly because anti-gravity bullshit.
Right. I get it. I just like flight stands can look pretty lame. I think it detracts from this model a decent amount because the model itself I do think is really cool.
If the model was made today and not 10 years ago, it would have a very fancy base to to not end up with just a stick up its ass.
Yeah, they would have some other stuff to be able to support, different parts of the model. Maybe that's a project for some kit bashing if you get excited by it, but cool model.
And as a last part here for Canoptek units, we have the Crypto Thralls, things that are way more horrifying in lore when you realize how they're made. If you piss off a Cryptek and he doesn't like you, you will spend the rest of eternity as a Crypto Thrall, and you will still feel pain.
That's not that much worse than like basically every other faction out there. But okay, you still feel the pain.
It is the Necron. Also, we could be Drukhari if we wanted to, but we don't have to. Crypto Thralls are basically your little assistant murder robot buddies who guard your cryptex. They're adorable murder buckets.
Murder Bucket fits so well.
Murder Bucket has been the name since they came out, and it has always fit. I've also heard people say they look kind of like raptors with a human face. Yeah, they've got that going on a little bit, but they're a murder bucket.
The talons definitely give the raptor scything vibe going on, but murder bucket just, it fits so well.
They basically act as like little bodyguards for your cryptex. If you're going to go Canoptek heavy, you probably have some cryptex, and if you have cryptex, you want to guard them because they're frail little wizard boys, and so you end up with murder buckets.
All right, so that kind of rounds out the Canoptek,
which is our third wing here. So what's left is all of the many vehicles we have access to in Necrons.
Yeah, there's still a few vehicles to talk about. Let's start with Tomb Blades.
Yes, so these are our bikes in Necrons. They sure are a circle.
They're like droidikins.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't think that's a bad thing. I like this model. It's kind of neat. I enjoy an alien idea of a bike.
I cannot insult this model for being boring. It is trying something. It does something interesting. I personally have never liked the Tomb Blades design, but I am sure this is the coolest bike out there in all of 40K for somebody.
Yeah.
You can't argue it's just a bike. It is definitely different and alien.
While still doing like same kind of vibes.
It does the job well where your brain goes, obviously this is an alien bike.
But also it has no characteristics similar to a bike.
Exactly.
I do think that they actually did a pretty good job of this. And part of that is like the fact that it's not really your jam, but that you can look at it and be like, this is done well and somebody else will really like this.
Yeah, it gets close to what I always say AOS does right, where like it takes a shot and fully commits to it. Where like even if you aren't the target audience, you go, damn, that's well executed.
And it's always nice when like that's what happens as opposed to being like overly safe and it's like, ooh, another lieutenant.
A 45th generic space marine that starts with int.
Fuck. Yeah.
All right, but moving on from our bikes, we have the Ribcage, the Doomsday Ark. One of the worst models ever to paint after you assemble it. It is miserable. It is a very cool design for a tank, though.
Again, like same kind of thing to the Tomb Blades of like, it's got tank vibes, but it's clearly not a normal tank. There are no real characteristics similar.
It is not protecting the guy driving it in any visible way. Now, it has a force field and all that stuff that we could get into lore-wise, but in no way does this look like a Space Marine tank. You cannot accuse it of that.
It's super unique, the Ribcage stuff.
But the Doomsday Ark does dual build into the Ghost Ark, which is basically our dedicated transport for Necron Warriors.
I absolutely adore how this is a transport.
I have always hated it because it shows the Necron Warriors, and thus, rules-wise, they've always made it only work with Necron Warriors.
Yeah, that is pretty annoying. The fact that your transport can only carry one type of unit. The idea of this is how you make your transport. It tickles the little like orc part of my brain.
One of the things I like with it is that it is a repair barge as well. The point of the Ghost Ark is to move the warriors around and like pick them up when they're downed and like repair them. So to put it in, God help me, StarCraft 2 terms.
Yeah.
I actually like the fact that it's like the medevac.
Yeah.
It reminds me of the medevac on being something interesting and different compared to just a transport.
Yeah, that is cool.
It makes it honestly unique versus everybody everybody else's.
So, off-topic tangent, because you linked this model to the medevac in my brain.
God damn it.
There was a time when the medevac was able to pick up sieged tanks, carry them around and drop them off. That would be an interesting way to have a transport.
Yeah?
Just being able to, like, pick other things up, even if it's like a fucking tomb blade. That would be neat.
A grabber claw transport. In a way, to segue perfectly into the Night Scythe, our other transport, the Night Scythe sort of works like that because it can transport whoever, because it uses a portal underneath to just put you on a different planet to wait around before portaling you back to the next place.
Is that how it works? It was always one of those, like, I guess they just smash them in there.
No, the Night Scythe and the Monolith are actually like just teleporting you in.
All right.
You're off wherever else, and they're like, all right, time to show up.
Yeah, that definitely makes a lot more sense on being a transport, while this thin croissant is being able to take any unit. All right, yeah, just trash compactor them in there.
Yeah, now I know I'm correct on the Monolith. That's how its works. I've always assumed that is how the Night Scythes worked, but I am sure that there's probably some lore that says the Night Scythe digitizes you into data and then just stores you, and then Willy Wonka teleports you out.
Yeah, I mean, its ability is Translocation Beam,
which should change you over to another place. Look, Necron lore is limited, so I'm working with what I got.
So we can make it up on Poor Hammer here.
Yeah, write me more Necron books. I do know that we just got a new one, but write me more Necron books.
Yeah, so I think that, again, like, a lot of the Necron vehicles have, like, I feel like a lot of polarizing styles, because I think there's going to be some people that look at, like, the Night Scythe and are like, this is dumb, croissant, and there's other people that look at it and are like, this is the coolest fucking thing ever.
Yeah, I can tell you this as a Necron player myself. I hate the Doomsday Ark and Ghost Ark. I don't like the ribcage. I admit that it's a very cool, unique design, but I personally don't like it. But I love my croissants. It will be very taste dependent for which vehicles you like in Necrons. Don't be ashamed.
And it's not just like, oh, you like Necron vehicles. There's a decent spread of options in the vehicles for different styles. And like, maybe you like them all. That's totally cool. But like, you could find something that you'll probably enjoy.
Yeah. So the Night Scythe, again, is our croissant transport. It dual builds into the Doom Scythe. If you are looking at the two and wondering what the difference is, the portal that is underneath the Night Scythe is replaced by a giant Doomsday Cannon, which is literally called the Heavy Death Ray currently.
These weapons sound so cool, and I wish there was better lore for some of them.
What do? They go zap.
Yeah, it is a death ray that's big.
A neat thing for if you're collecting these models and you don't know to build your Night Scythe or your Doom Scythe, you're in luck. This is the most easily swapped kit GW ever made. It is a single gun underneath that Lego blocks in place. You can just hand swap them. If you prime them, you don't even need a magnet. You could just pull it out and jam the other one in there.
Yeah, that's kind of neat.
So your Night Scythe and Doom Scythe, you get both. Whichever one you need it to be today, you can have it be.
Yeah, you build the Night Scythe or the Doom Scythe and just make sure to paint up the gun as well, and then you slot it in as needed.
Yep.
That's always cool.
That's a big one for if you're new to Necrons. And even then, no one can tell what the portal is underneath anyways. If you've got to flip it over to tell which one it is, it's not that important.
True. Moving on to the Annihilation Barge.
So this is the alt build of the Catacomb Command Barge. This is where instead of the pulpit, you replace it with two giant Tesla guns.
It is hilarious. Look at them side by side, and it's like, oh, you literally just replaced it with two big fucking guns.
For a pro level trick here, if you already have foot overlords, an overlord on foot on a 40 mil base slides in almost perfectly where this gun does, and this gun is just a twist on. So if you're not overly into the pulpits look, just throw an extra overlord on a 40 mil instead of the gun, and now you can dual build this into a Catacomb Command Barge. You're welcome.
All right, that's pretty nice. It's always nice to have some of those like options, but that are also like easy to do. You don't have to like, oh, I have to mag all this stuff.
And the Annihilation Barge is basically our light tank. Like, this is the equivalent of like a storm speeder for Space Marines. This is your like buggy equivalent, like not quite a tank.
It's so sad that it moves 10 inches only, but
it's fly. I mean, not that that matters this edition, but like it's usually cool.
It's not bad, but yeah.
Moving on to the Triarch's vehicle of choice, we have the Triarch Stalker, which is a Triarch Praetorian Praetorian piloting a spider mech with a giant underslung gun. And there are several options for which underslung gun you go with.
Yeah, it's a fun model, but like...
Look, it's one of my favorite vehicles, but that's because it looks very close to a normal Canoptek unit, but there's a dude on it. And it's almost always better when you take a Canoptek Spyder and mutilate it to be the top bonnet instead of the dude. And now it's just a gigantic Canoptek Spyder to act as your Triarch Stalker.
I do feel like if you're interested in the Canoptek part of the army, you might be interested in the Triarch Stalker, because like it'll fit reasonably well, like aesthetically.
You can find kit bashes of people turning it into a giant spider bot. It is something that many other people have done. You will be in good company.
But even on its own, is cool. But we're getting into some of the last ones, which are...
some of the largest plastic models in 40K at all.
Yeah, we've got the Monolith.
Yeah, this thing is huge. As Eric always jokes, it is a terrain piece.
It is absolutely a terrain piece. A really beautiful terrain piece.
As someone who has tried to move one around a board, it's a terrain piece.
There was a moment where it was really good in rules. Generally, it's not.
It's always been fun, though.
It's always been fun. That is true.
The Monolith is basically a move your palace around. Also, your palace is equipped with giant death lasers.
Yeah, I absolutely love the way like it's like taken apart, essentially. Very cool looking model. Absolutely a kind of like art piece, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's actually a great way to say it, because it's like a massive, like truly massive centerpiece model. The thing is bulky and huge. Haywo may even call it big. I don't know why I was so happy with that.
And the more I'm like, okay, where are we going from here? I'm like, that's really...
That's the end of the sentence. But art piece is like really a great way to describe it. The way the Eternity Gate looks in the front of it, the fact that it's got the entire like energy ball that the Canoptek Wraith is maintaining up top, having just 4 death rays coming out of the sides, and it just looks like a small palace that you hover down from orbit.
Yeah, the whole fly part, it makes sense. Very Necron advanced technology thing, but also hilarious. Aliens built the pyramid.
Yes, and then flew the pyramid away.
Turned it into a giant weapon.
Speaking of, we have more pyramids that we fly around and turn into giant weapons. One of them is a C'tan's prison, the Tesseract Vault, the final C'tan in air quotes. This is a giant vehicle powered by a C'tan shard.
And the way it's like split apart to show the C'tan, it's just a fun idea.
It also is part of one of Borrelio's favorite to use cinematic things that he's used in the background of like 10 different openings we've done. Probably way more than 10 at this point.
I was like, I think it's more than 10. It's like one of the go-to defaults.
Several dozen times he's used it.
It is awesome. So like not complaining in any way.
Borrelio just posting the goofy, I'll fucking do it again. But yeah, this is one of the funnest models I do not have. I have proxied this before to play a game, and I absolutely love it. I loved it in 9th edition with its crazy rules. It's a stupid model through and through.
I understand the only reason you don't have it is because you're kind of done with painting your Necrons right now and don't want to do it again.
Yeah, I don't want to have to paint this thing. If I'm being perfectly honest, I didn't want to paint Orikan or my new Imotekh.
And this is definitely a larger project.
Yes, and I would feel like I have to do it right with a C'tan in it. But yes, look, the Tesseract Vault, if you like C'tan and you want the ultimate centerpiece, like something that hangs off a giant base in every direction, the thing is basically impossible to move around a board. It is huge. This is the big centerpiece to a C'tan spam list if you want to just run one of every C'tan and try to fit it together.
Very thematically fun list. Just don't run it too often. It will either be completely terrible or nobody will want to play with you after the 3rd game.
90% of the time in history, it has been terrible.
Yeah, another one of these like fun, large centerpiece art models.
Yeah, but the Tesseract Vault does dual build into the Obelisk. The Obelisk, again, has been terrible for its entire existence to a point where we think GW just does it on purpose as a joke at this point. Don't build the Obelisk.
It's tough because like it does look really cool like that, but it looks cooler when it's split apart as the Tesseract Vault, and like there's not really an easy way to be like, ooh, it morphs.
All right, there's one last thing in Necrons. We have a fortification set, which is the Convergence of Dominion. It's terrain.
This one really is. As much as like the monolith is funny, this is really fancy terrain.
Yes, the Convergence of Dominion is fancy terrain. I'm not going to try to argue you should ever purchase this.
I have no idea what it costs, but probably too much for terrain.
It looks really cool, though. It always looks great in background shots that GW posts because they don't have to worry about paying for it first.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you want to really go hard on, like, customizing a board with, like, you know, special terrain and, like, features and, like, all that kind of stuff, that could be really fun to have this as an addition to it, but generally, probably not worth it. That's basically it. I mean, there's probably some other, like, old Finecast Legends models and all that stuff.
There is stuff in Legends and other things. There's 400 more characters who have been sunset already. Look, Necrons has a long history. There's a lot of stuff that has gone away over time, but this is everything that currently exists that you should care about.
Yeah, I mean, the only other shout out would be some of the other models from that kill team that's coming out.
True. We don't know what they'll end up being like, if they're all going to get 40k rules or how they'll be split up, but yes, there's the Tomb Crawlers, there's the Canoptek Warriors, Accelerator and Reanimator, and the Geomancer, who's almost assuredly just going to be the next Cryptek character.
Yeah, I think that one's pretty likely. The other ones, hopefully, they do look pretty cool.
I love Canoptek, so I will always take more Canoptek kits.
Yeah, they're all just so adorable. But at the moment, we don't actually know like what's going to happen there. That kind of rounds out Necrons, and they're like kind of three prongs with the Canoptek, the Destroyers, and then like the Silver Tide kind of thing, with a bit of splashy Catons as well.
Yes, just spamming Catons. Screw accenting my army. I want my army to only be accent.
Hey, it can work sometimes, man.
Look, I'm a fan of Monster Mash in almost everywhere you can force it.
Yeah.
Even when it's terrible. Which Catons have not been this edition. They have been oppressive at times. Anyway, that does it for this topic. I hope if you were interested in Necrons, you know more which direction you want to go with things. You can't really go wrong as long as you love our undying robot friends and you understand that the Scarabs are the cutest thing ever.
And if you're still unsure about like, you know, the different factions, we've got a couple other videos in the series. We've done Space Marines and Chaos Space Marines and Eldar.
Admech.
Did we do Admech?
Yes, we did.
Yeah, so go take a look at those and hopefully that can help you make your decisions. Otherwise, normal YouTube pleasantry, like, comment, subscribe.
And thank you again to our patrons, and we're out of here for the week.
Sounds good.